Hey everyone, another edition of Off the Top Rope. I'll be straight up. I only watched clips of Full Gear, but I wanted to read off the results of Full Gear and what happened at this show and some of the stuff that went down, and just, where AEW is kind of heading in the direction going into this week of Thanksgiving, having a big-time pay-per-view at the end of the year in World's End. They start the Continental Classic, which was just announced. But let's talk about this for a second. Let's talk about it, as Trick Williams would say. So merging in WWE and NXT, which is now beating this thing. So kickoff show, there were 3 matches on the kickoff show. There was 12 matches in total. It's way too much. And kickoff show started 6:30 Eastern. This show didn't go off the air until midnight, so we're talking 5.5 hours. That's way too much when you have monthly pay-per-views. Tony Khan, you've got to chill. So Anna Jay beats Deonna Purrazzo. Taya Valkyrie and Deonna are now teamed together in what's called the Vendetta, and Deonna can't even make the main show in her home state of New Jersey. They're in Newark, and she loses to Anna Jay. Granted, Anna Jay has looked really good near the back half of this year. A couple of great matches with Mariah May for the Women's Championship, but hey, what are we doing? Like, Deonna Purrazzo's got this new heel faction that you're trying to get over, and she loses in 7 minutes to Anna Jay. What are we doing? We get a random fatal 4-way. Buddy Matthews beats Dante Martin, Commander, and the Beast Mortos, which is like Tony Khan's favorite superstar. Buddy Matthews, hey, happy for Mr. Rhea Ripley. Good for him. He's a great wrestler, just mired in some really terrible creative in AEW. Big Boom AJ, along with Big Justice and the Rizzler, beat QT Marshall in probably what was the most newsworthy match of this show, and it was on the kickoff show. It was the most talked about match going into this night, and this was very sports entertainment. You had Big Justice hitting a spear on QT Marshall. I didn't have so much of a problem with Big Boom AJ and Big Justice and the Costco guys, who I still don't understand why they're a thing on TikTok. That wasn't my issue. My issue was a couple of things here. There was multiple issues with why, not so much the match, because this was very sports entertainment-esque, but that's not what AEW is. It's where the best wrestle. That's the first thing. Number 2, why wasn't this, if you're talking about getting visibility for AEW, why was this on the pre-show? Why was this on 0 Hour? You could easily draw more attention to people buying the show who are interested in seeing, Big Boom AJ, because there is clearly a following and an interest in this. You could easily get people to spend $50 on the pay-per-view knowing that this was going to be on it. That's the other thing. And then finally, the fact that this was the most buzzworthy thing for a company that has been declining in ratings, that this was the most buzzworthy thing, and this was the only match that was really getting any significant publicity throughout the week. Like, Tony Khan was everywhere with these guys. Everywhere with the Costco guys. You didn't see Orange Cassidy anywhere. You didn't see John Moxley anywhere. You didn't see MJF, who, by the way, is from the New York, New Jersey area. You didn't see them promoting any of this. You didn't see Mercedes Moné promoting any of this. It was Tony Khan with 2 celebrities on TikTok that a lot of the population may not even know what their deal is. I don't understand what their deal is. They eat a bunch of shit at Costco. But it was very sports entertainment. It was fun. It was harmless. For what it was fine. But given what AEW represents, and given the amount of publicity that went into this, and not the contracted people on your roster, that's not sending a great message in its own right. And when you're trying to create some distance and create some differential stuff between you and WWE, and you're different, that tells me, A, whatever you're doing is not working, and whatever you're trying to do is not working either, because you're resorting to going to these tactics, which Vince McMahon would get destroyed if something like this happened. Triple H, if he tried to do something like this, he would get destroyed. But I got Big Boom AJ, man, like, he has a wrestling background. Guy can work. He can take a work punch. He can throw a punch. He can sell. Like, it was impressive. This was impressive, and I got to hand it to QT Marshall, who I think has gotten kind of annoying on Twitter, but he lobbied for this and he got it. And yeah, like I said, for 11 minutes, but it should have been on the main show. And a lot of people were saying, well, you would have been mad at it if it was on the main show. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, because like I said, it goes to one of my main points of, this is really against everything that AEW represents. But if you're trying to sell tickets or paper, I mean, tickets weren't an issue. Like, they were down from last year's Full Gear, but they still sold about 10,000 tickets at the Rock in Newark. But it's just like you're trying to get people to buy your pay-per-view. And there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of interest in anything else on this show. So at least, throw this on the show and it would create some interest. So yeah, that was a big picture thing. So then the main show kicks off with a fatal 4-way tag match between Private Party, the Outrunners, the Kings of the Black Throne, and the Acclaimed. It looks like they're going to break up Max Caster and Anthony Bowens. Some people will say, why do that? Because there's no depth in the tag team division. At this point, I think the Acclaim's ice cold. I don't think they work as a tag team anymore. Nobody really cares for Max Caster because his raps have kind of gotten nasty after they were kind of a novelty and kind of cool. So I actually think Anthony Bowens has some potential as a single. I would break them up. Maybe I'm not have a popular opinion about that. But the way that they were handled, and this is like a general thing with AEW, is some of their hottest acts from a couple years ago, where they are now, needs to be studied. Because it's really just embarrassing just how ice cold and how nobody cares about the Acclaimed anymore outside of the, the scissoring and stuff. Like, them as an act, they're just ice cold. But Private Party wins. Good for them. They got the tag team titles about 4 years too late. But hey, tag team, it was kind of just a weird match. Some weird spots in here. Rick Knox was officiating it, and he let a bunch of stuff go. It's Rick Knox. He's a terrible official. MJF and Rodrick Strong. This was weird. Roddy, I think, is a fine professional wrestler, one of the better ones, but this was not a pay-per-view match. This felt like something you could see on Collision or Dynamite. MJF was not there for the whole build to this match. MJF looks like he doesn't care. He looks like he's disinterested. He looks like he cashed his bag and has just, like a lot of people in this company, have taken their bag and, just mailed it in. And that's one of the other big issues with this. Everybody's like, hey, we're happy we've got another place to get us paid. Tony Khan's going to just, give us money because he just doesn't care. He's living his dream as a mark owning a wrestling company. And we're just all going to take his money and take him to the cleaners. And this was another case. I mean, this was a fine working wrestling match. MJF then beats up Rodrick Strong's arm after beating him by submission. Adam Cole comes out after the fact. There's a little bit of a confrontation between him and Kyle O'Reilly. This is not going to be over. MJF and Adam Cole are going to continue their feud, but there's just no heat behind this from where this was a year ago. They didn't finish it. They went through with it. Injuries just killed the buzz off of it. And again, just bad creative. Just not a whole lot making sense. This match shouldn't have been on the show. I understand it's to advance an angle with some of the top stars, but it's just like Rodrick Strong and MJF just doesn't do a lot for a lot of people. So that was weird. Mercedes Moné and Chris Statlander, one of the longest and one of the best women's matches in the history of AEW. But Mercedes Moné wins. She wins. And nobody cares. Nobody cares about one of the great stars in women's wrestling of the last, decade or so. And that's a reflection of poor creative. It's also on her because I think she has kind of coasted a little bit. And, you've got the whole thing with Camille where that's going nowhere and they're making Camille look like the worst bodyguard in professional wrestling history. So that's bad. Chris Statlander did the best that she could. I don't know why she's a babyface. She's kind of in trouble now because as a heel, she had room to grow potentially to progress to a certain spot in this company, but because she turned babyface and immediately lost her first big time match, that's a problem. So I don't know what we're doing here. It was a great match, but there was no story to it. And the outcome of it, I just don't know where anybody goes here. Like, Mercedes is going to hang on to that title. And it's just going to be nails on a chalkboard, and it's not going to do anything for anybody. And that's on Tony Khan. That's on Mercedes, that this isn't working and they don't recognize. And they got to do something to kind of heighten interest, because the women's division is worse than when she got there. And that wasn't the goal of this. So that's an issue. Speaking of the women's division, they also did a segment on this show, a champagne celebration involving Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa. Mariah May proceeds to try to turn on Mina Shirakawa. Mina is devastated, and they basically ran like a reverse version of the Toni Storm heel turn, where Mariah is outsmarted by Mina. Mina tries to tackle Mariah off the stage through a table. First table doesn't break. They go through the second one. So again, some production botches, which is another problem with AEW. Mina leaves Mariah bloodied, and that's clearly where this is going. So, probably the most interesting thing Mariah May has actually done. Yeah, the Anna Jay stuff was fine, but nobody was ever going to believe that Anna Jay was going to win the women's championship. This is genuinely interesting for the women's division, but you're sacrificing a spot on pay-per-view for a celebration for somebody who won a championship 3 months ago? What are we doing? Very sports entertainment, again, kind of against what AEW represents, which is a problem for me. Jay White beats Hangman Adam Page. I love Jay White. I love that he's being put into a prime position. It feels a year too late, because remember, a year ago at this event, he had one of the most crippling pieces of booking I think I've ever seen in my life, where a one-legged MJF beat Jay White at Full Gear, which made no sense. But he beats Hangman for the second consecutive pay-per-view. I think he's beat him now 5 times out of the times that they've met, and I don't have an actual number. Listen, I don't know why these two guys needed to face each other. It's a high-profile match, but Hangman's coming off one of the biggest wins of his career in beating Swerve Strickland. And Hangman should be vaulted into, top contender territory. And he's dropped back-to-back matches clean to Jay White. This is your top guy. Your top guy, arguably the best character that you have. I can understand, hey, it'll set him off to the deep end of things. But it's like, in my opinion, Hangman right off the back of what happened at All Out and what happened in the build to... I understand they had to give Bryan Danielson a big moment at Wembley. Hangman should be the world champion right now. He should absolutely be the world champion. The Jon Moxley stuff is not doing... And I will talk about that match here at the end here, about how that main event and how all over the place that the conclusion of the show was. It's just, man, what are we doing, man? Hangman is so much better than this, and I think you would have at least somewhat of a more level of viability with Hangman, a captivating character with an interesting, compelling storyline and angle behind him, being the world champion at this point. I don't get it. I don't understand it here. So that was weird. Kyle Fletcher beats Will Osprey. This was a great match, probably the best match on the show. I'm not surprised. These two guys are awesome. I'm glad Will Osprey put over Kyle Fletcher clean. Yes, it's a back-to-back pinfall losses for Will Osprey, but Will Osprey is in a little bit of a different position where he had, he has so much equity, and frankly, like I've said, he's probably one of the best things that they've got this year, that elevating a top, like Jay White is Jay White. He doesn't need to be elevated. We know Kyle Fletcher is a young up-and-coming star that just had this really impactful heel turn. He needs to be established. So that's why that is different. A couple things in this match that just really just defy logic. We get a tombstone pile driver on the steel steps right in front of the referee. It should be a disqualification. But then it doesn't lead to the finish of the match. Like, AEW has this really bad habit of doing all these devastating moves that lead to just kickouts. It's like, this is indie shit. Like, and everybody's giving WWE shit for Kevin Owens giving a dangerous move, a pile driver, to Randy Orton. It looks safe, but Randy Orton selling it as maybe a career-ending move, whereas It's a tombstone, which might be even more dangerous. It altered the entire course of that altered the entire course of Stone Cold Steve Austin's career, and he had neck issues, and yet that's a transitional move. What are we doing? This was a great match, but it's just like, I feel like we just do these weird fucking spots that are just like, they should be impactful, but they're transitional moves. They should end the match, and you're just bastardizing that. Like, Canadian destroyers are commonplace. That should be a devastating move. It's not. It's not ending the match. What are we doing? But good for Kyle Fletcher. Also good for Daniel Garcia, even if he doesn't even have remotely the buzz around him, and beats a terrible champion in Jack Perry for the TNT title. But Daniel Garcia is the TNT champion. Good for him. He's clearly one of the cornerstones of this company. If they can survive, we'll see. Don't have a whole lot to say about this match. But like I said, Danny he's a good professional wrestler. He doesn't have a whole lot of personality. That's a problem with people in AEW. But he's a great wrestler, and I think he more than earned a championship. Konosuke Takeshita, or as MJF would say, take a shitta. I have to make that joke every time, it seems like. He beats Ricochet by pinfall. I mean, this got thrown together at the last minute. We knew it was going to happen, but it gets announced on the internet. It happening towards the end of the show. Nobody really cared about this. Ricochet's just a guy. Ricochet's just a guy. He's no different than where he was when he left WWE. He's just a guy. He was just a guy in WWE. He is just a guy in AEW. He can just, a lot more of the focus isn't going to be on promos and stuff, but more of it's going to be on, hey, can we do something? And you know what? The only thing that honestly I think can save Ricochet at this point is if him and Will Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs, Powerhouse, join Bobby Lashley in the Hurt Syndicate. Perfect transition. Bobby Lashley wins his debut match, but they had him face Cheeseburger. They had him face Cheeseburger in a 2-on-1 handicap match in his debut. But his pay-per-view debut, he beat Swerve Strickland in a kind of a relatively short match. Good for Lashley. I don't think he's going to really do a whole hell of a lot. You could add Ricochet and, Hobbs to the Hurt Syndicate and make them more imposing. I just don't see how much further this can go, especially when the narrative around this is we're talking about, hey, like in the post-match scrum, you have people asking about Bobby Lashley showing up and beating a black champion, him being diplomatic about it, saying, hey, we've generalized that whole thing, normalized that thing to the point of it's not about color of skin, it's about, the performer. And Lashley's a great performer. So we need to stop that and stop trying to create a narrative, an anti-Triple H narrative, because I know what was going on there about how Triple H doesn't push, which is a weird narrative. But yeah, that was really the story coming out of that was, Lashley beats Swerve Strickland. Swerve's got enough equity on him where he doesn't need to win there. It's fine. Where the Hurt Syndicate goes from here, I have no idea. And then Jon Moxley beats Orange Cassidy in the main event. Nobody doubted for a second that Jon Moxley was going to win this match, but a couple things that bothered me here. Number one, I don't think we've seen the World Championship since he won it. It's been in a briefcase. They didn't even take it out to show during the match because Orange Cassidy jumped the gun during the introductions to start this match. Orange Cassidy gets a Hope near fall from, I forgot what it was. I think it was somebody came in and ran in and used a chair that helped Orange Cassidy. But then Orange Cassidy doesn't lose clean. Why are we protecting Orange Cassidy? Nobody bought him being a challenger in the first place. So you have to have Wheeler Yuta come in and hit a Busaiku knee, and then Jon Moxley hits his finish and wins the match. What is this? What is this Death Riders thing? What is this? And then after the match, you have a bunch of shenanigans come in after the match. Hangman Page is involved in it. Jay White's involved with it. Christian Cage is involved with it. Christian Cage tries to cash in his championship opportunity. Hangman tries to stop him. Christian mounts to him, I'll give you the first shot. Hangman just leaves. Jay White then stops that. The Death Riders get out of Dodge. And then Darby Allin, as the Death Riders are trying to leave in their Ford F-150 or whatever, their truck, Darby Allin, not a stuntman, Darby Allin just rams a car in a nasty car accident because they're trying to recreate the Attitude Era. and Darby Allin is the last image of the show, crashing into a car with blood all over him. It's clearly setting the stage for Darby Allin to be the main guy, trying to go after Jon Moxley and trying to save AEW. And it's just like, this whole angle is just not clicking. It's just not clicking. There was no doubt in this main event who was winning. There is no doubt where they are going with this. It is not very good. It is also very dangerous. And I have no earthly idea of, the direction of where things are going moving forward. There was some okay matches on the show, but all in all, this was probably the worst pay-per-view that AEW's ever produced. They are usually a pay-per-view work rate company. There was good stuff on this show. There was fine matches, but not a lot of story, not a lot of, emotion going into these things. And then the ending of this show was just flat and very convoluted and very overbooked. It's starting to feel like WCW again. I've been saying this for weeks. So get at me in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. If you disagree, tell me what you think. It's just, there's some concerns here because I just don't know where the direction of this place goes. So anyway, I will talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.